Welcome to the Love and Sex Today show with Dr. Doug Weiss. Doug has been healing hearts and relationships for decades. He's helped thousands of people release the shame and the guilt, restoring hope, helping people get free from addictions to enjoy a better sex and love life. Here he is, your host, Dr. Doug Weiss.
Welcome to Love and Sex Today. I'm Dr. Doug Weiss, and I will be your host for our 13th conversation, and it's an amazing. This is going to be an interesting conversation because I want to talk about, is his porn making me fat? Now, in this discussion, I'm going to be talking about the impact that a husband's pornography or long-term male partner's pornography has on a woman, has on his wife. Now, I've been working with couples who deal with sexual addiction and pornography for over 30 years. I've seen a couple thousand women in my office. I want to share with you today about the impact that pornography has on women, whether they know he's using porn or not. Now, don't forget, I want you to go to loveandsextoday.com, loveandsextoday.com, and subscribe. And then review us on iTunes. We love getting reviews on there. That helps us to be able to help more people, and it really is something that you can do positive for us. One of you will be selected one time a month to have a conversation with me, priceless, powerful, and hopefully we'll be able to accelerate some area in your life that you want to talk about. Love to get to know you. So you have to write a review for us to pick you. Also, there's always a free chapter on loveandsextoday.com of one of my books, many books. You can get a chapter that's usually very, very helpful stuff there. Now, I want to talk about, is his porn making me fat? I mean, when I talk about this topic, right away, eyebrows go up. And I'm not going to give you the answer right away. I'm going to give you the answer as we go through this. I'm going to give you the answer. It comes from Partners Healing from His Addiction. It's a book I've written, which that book has many statistics about many impacts about pornography and sexual addiction on the wife. 85 women helped me write that book. And so the statistics are powerful and pungent. So I want to walk through first. If you're married to someone who has a pornography or sexual addiction, it impacts everyone. But I want to talk about why. Whether it's a porn addiction or sex addiction or alcohol or drugs or any kind of addictive behavior, what happens to the human soul is it begins to get robbed of emotional, spiritual, and moral maturity at the age of onset. So most addicts of every kind start off in adolescence and stay adolescents. They have very short-term thinking. They resolve problems like a 14 or 15-year-old male would. Mommy catches me, that'd be bad, but their thou shalt nots, their moral compass, are very limited. And so you find yourself married to a man who is really acting more boyish and reasons more boyish and gets angry really quickly and isn't really thinking about you and your needs and being able to kind of conceptualize what's going around globally. So this woman is in a relationship with a man who really doesn't see her or see her needs and not able to really meet them or predict them as they're coming down the road of life. And so constantly she's in a battle in a relationship to try to get understood and try to get her needs met. This is very tough on the soul, very tough on the soul. And every decade this goes by, the harder it becomes. I've had thousands of women tell me, I feel like I have another child. And if you're a man and you're listening to this, I don't mean to hurt you in any way, but if you have an addiction, you have an adolescent development in which you can get better. I got better, but it takes some work, and we're not doing that show today. But why else would this woman be impacted? Well, his immaturity affects not only her, but affects how he relates to the children. Oftentimes, as the children reach adolescence, get abstract reasoning, they start reaching 16, 17, and 18, they sometimes behave more maturely than the porn-addicted father. And the way they make decisions is actually more mature than the way the father makes decisions. Because the father's still about me and mine. There's not a we, there's a me. And so because the addiction is robbing him of that maturity, it affects how he relates to the children and how he can be there or not be there for them. Also, just looking at the household responsibilities, it's challenging for someone with an addiction to get a bigger view of the world than their own little space. And so it's not uncommon for them to be that not unhelpful. Well, can you imagine the resentment that builds up year after year of living with someone who can't think about anyone but themselves, who you're constantly picking up after, and you're doing many kind things for, and they're not met with gratitude or reciprocity? They're met with almost entitlement and expectation. Now, if you have a teenage son, your hope is that they get over this. And between 14 and say 19 or 20, they generally do. But when you have someone who's an addict of any kind, they don't. And it gets harder and harder and longer as this journey of walking together. So, of course, when you have this addiction, you've got pornography kind of sitting in the background. And I can tell you, women will have these symptoms. I'm only talking about one today, but there's several symptoms that women can have when their husband is doing pornography. Now, 85 women helped me write this book, Partners Healing from His Addiction. And if you need a copy of that, go to loveandsextoday.com, ebook it, buy the hard copy, hit books, it'll take you there. Because this is probably one of the first books that actually had statistics in it dealing with spouses of sex addicts. Let me give you some statistics from the book. 62% of these spouses felt that they dealt with eating disorder issues because of their husband's sexual addiction, pornography addiction. 59% of the women in the study said that they turned to food. Now, why would they turn to food? Think about that. You're not getting your emotional needs met from a mature man. You're not getting your spiritual needs met. Oh, and let's just take a minute and talk about sex. I mean, what is it to have sex with someone who's in an adolescent development? Do you think sex is going to be mutual and understanding and giving and caring, and he's going to hear your heart and connect to you and want you to be pleased and happy? Most likely not. Most likely, even sex is going to be more about them, and it's going to be more about them getting their needs met than even being aware of your needs. And I can't tell you how many women told me that their husbands aren't even aware of even helping them out sexually or even being aware of their sexual needs. And then there's the whole theme of being sexually disconnected. I mean, you feel like something's happening to you instead of someone being with you. And if you feel like sex is something being done to you, that gets empty and void and eventually creates this negative cycle for you as far as sexual desire, which can confuse the guy. But it's just what happens with women. If they don't feel like their needs are being met, they don't feel like they're being connected to during sex, it actually makes sex a very negative experience over time. And that itself has an impact on the woman. But what about just that general message of not feeling like you're enough, always being asked to do more, you can't ever satisfy, and that whole treadmill of trying to perform sexually, well, that doesn't feel good either. So why does she turn to food? She's alone. She feels unsupported in her marriage, in her family, in the household, sexually disconnected, feeling used and isolated. Well, those are a lot of really strong feelings because most of these women married for happily ever after and the knight in shining armor and the guy who actually cares about her and looks into her eyes while he's making love to her. But they've got this adolescent absent person. And so turning to food would be normal. Out of those people who turned to food, 84% of them said they dealt with food by overeating. 61% of these people said that they did gain weight because of the pornography and sexual addiction issues. So this is a really big issue. And a lot of women feel bad that their bodies have morphed. And sometimes the morph, it can be hormones, it can be aging, it can be that they're not exercising. There are other variables. Not 100% of your weight can be put on a man's pornography, but it is a variable. And if you're finding yourself and you're a woman and you're listening to this or one of your girlfriends sends you this, they might be saying, hey, maybe you need to ask your husband about his porn usage. I'll never forget. This lady came down, I was at a conference, and she said, my husband's not really leading me at home and we're not really connected. And she had several of the symptoms. Weight was one of them. And I looked at her and I said, listen, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to be here tomorrow night, bring your husband. But when you go home tonight, I want you to ask him about his porn and his self-behavior. Ask him how often he's doing that. I mean, she looked at me like, are you crazy? I'm telling you about, I said, I know. I want you to go home and do this. And you can tell me tomorrow if I'm wrong. But you're carrying many of the symptoms I see with women who have a porn-addicted husband. So go home and ask him. Just straight out ask him. Well, she did that, and they came back the next day, and sure enough, he was very active in pornography, very active in self-behavior, and this was a core reason why she was having many of the symptoms she was having in her life. And so what's good about this is you can maybe de-shame yourself from some of this. If you're a woman who's been carrying some extra pounds and you're in this situation, or maybe you're carrying the pounds and you don't know you're in a situation, my advice would be just like I would to that lady, go ask your husband, when was the last time you looked at pornography? When was the last time you were sexual with yourself? How often is that happening? And now with the internet, I mean, you can check history so quickly. I mean, some of them are smart, but women have become smart on computers, and you can check histories and stuff like that, and you can find out what's going on. Because you can't compete against an image, and you can't compete with an addiction. Even if you're the most beautiful woman in the world, you're not an it. You're not a thing. Okay, you're a soul. I've had myths of several states in my office over the years. Beautiful women who were unwanted by their husbands because of their pornography, sex addiction, and intimacy anorexia. That is devastating to a woman in her life, especially the younger she is and the more pretty she is. She feels like somehow the culture lied to her. She was supposed to be wanted and desired and connected to. So weight gain can be contributed to pornography. Okay, and so find out what's going on in your home. You can address these issues. If you need help, you can call Heart to Heart Counseling Center, 719-278-3708. There's the Partners Book. There's workbooks. There's all kinds of things you can do if you're married to someone or in a long-term relationship with someone who's struggling with pornography or sexual addiction. And also, I would say this before we go today, don't blame yourself. It's not about your age. It's not about your body. It's not about your sex life. It's not about any body parts you have or don't think you have enough of. It has nothing to do with that. These guys were addicted way before they met you, sometimes thousands of times in their brain attaching to another world. This is not your fault. This is not your problem as far as you can't make it different. They will have to take the steps out of denial and move through the recovery process, but you can start getting help for you. So don't forget, I want you to go to loveandsextoday.com. I want you to subscribe. Write us a review. This one's probably going to get some really interesting reviews, but write us some reviews, and one of you will be selected for that private conversation with me, and we can definitely see what we can get into and accelerate some area of your life. Get your free chapter of whatever book is up on the webpage at the time that you get to join us, because, with podcasting, you might join us 5 years from now. But something should be on the page for you to get for free. And remember, always, have a great love and have a great sex life today.
That's it for our episode of Love and Sex Today with Dr. Doug Weiss. Head on over to loveandsextoday.com and be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes. When you do, and you post a review on iTunes, some lucky listener is going to win every single month a private confidential coaching call with Dr. Doug Weiss. Also, feel free to ask any question you like. You can push a button, speak your question, and Dr. Doug will answer your question in a future episode. So be sure to subscribe to the show. Doug's got some great gifts for you, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.